Hi everyone, it's John from What Up. Welcome back to another video, and today we're walking through the latest Wheel of Time episode and trying to find as many Easter eggs as we possibly can. Yes, we're looking at A Road to the Spear, probably the greatest episode of fantasy television ever created. So, if you love the Wheel of Time as much as I do, if you're excited about the Wheel of Time Season 3 that's just out right now, or if you're just curious and like keeping up with the news, consider making us your home for Wheel of Time news, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course, tell all of your friends. Now, since we are walking through and getting Easter eggs, full book spoilers, folks. Yes, every one of my Easter egg and breakdown videos is full book spoilers. So, if you haven't read all of the Wheel of Time series, it's The Eye of the World Through a Memory of Light by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. Before we're warned, I'm going to ruin plot points and character arcs from both. Now, we're going to explain some things that are going on in this video, but if you are confused about a couple of things or want more information on some of the backstory behind some of the scenes and things that are going on, because you haven't read the books, you're going to want to wait for my breakdown video, which will come out tomorrow. Now, the breakdown videos, again, are full book spoilers, and they are geared towards show watchers and not book fans. Why full book spoilers, John, if they're not geared towards book fans? Well, it's because a lot of people who watch the show don't want to read the books or haven't read the books, but don't mind spoilers. So if you haven't read the books and you have some questions about things that are going on that are not answered in today's Easter egg video, watch for my breakdown video tomorrow. Yeah. So let's dive in here, and we'll start right away getting some of these Easter eggs. Starting out, we have the scenes with Lan and Rand. Again, more scenes that I super wanted to see, and I think a lot of people out there did too. The two of them forming a relationship together and kind of sparring and bonding. But there's a couple of things that were brought up in these scenes that are pretty important within the context of the book series, and they were nice to see, and I want to mention them. The first one is the Flame of the Void. So, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the Flame of the Void has been brought up very often in the show. It's certainly not a central point of the show, but in the book series, it super was. The Flame of the Void was a thing that came up a whole lot with Rand and his journey. It's how he was able to maintain pure focus whenever he was fighting other Blade Masters, whenever he was doing something that required concentration, and when he grasped one power. And because it wasn't such a big central part of the show yet, hearing it here, like a lot of people, and there's a whole lot of people online, like a lot of book fans that were just kind of squealing with joy when they heard this, and I was one of them. I super like that. The other thing is this entire conversation is very reminiscent of what happened at the beginning of the Great Hunt when Rand and Lan were training together at Faldara. It's not a direct callback to it, but there's enough of the tidbits and lines and some of the dialogue here that is similar or the same that I would say this is likely an Easter egg or a reference to that for sure. And basically, at that point, Lan is giving praise sparingly, but he's giving it sparingly enough that Rand thinks that he may already be a Blade Master at that point. So that this is the beginning of the Great Hunt. So this would have been Season 2-ish, pre-Season 2, very beginning of Season 2, if you follow the sort of the same timelines in the books. Either way, pretty neat. Next is this. They talk a bit about gai'shain here, and I want to touch on this. So they talk about being touched in battle. I want to expand on this just a bit more. We'll talk about things like this more in the breakdown, but this is something that I think a lot of non-book readers would really like a little more context on. And essentially, a gai'shain is someone who has G. So their honor has been taken from them, I guess is the best way to put it, or they have honor towards someone else. So in the Aiel culture, Ji'ito is their way of life. It is the Aiel. It's ingrained into them from birth. It's just the way they are. They live it. And to gain G, to gain honor, there's a ton of different ways to do that. But if you fight an enemy in battle that's of equal strength to you, and you kill them, I mean, it's a little bit of honor, but it's not a whole lot. I mean, there's not a bunch there. If you're fighting someone who's stronger than you, tougher, smarter, better armed, more honor. If you fight somebody when you have no weapons and they have weapons, even more honor. The most honor you can earn in battle is when someone has a weapon, they're trying to kill you, you touch them, and then you leave them alone. You don't hurt them. It's kind of like a slap in the face, I guess, is the best way to put it, towards the Aiel. And the Aiel who's touched has a lot of honor towards the other person. So to make up for that honor, in most cases, not all, because Aiel are touchy and sometimes things change, but in most cases, these Aiel consider themselves taken in battle and they become gai'shain to sort of reduce their lowering in their own eyes. In doing this, they become a servant of sorts towards whoever touched them, and they can be given to other people or made to serve other people or do different things. And they serve for a year and a day. They can do no harm, commit no violence, and they're meek. Now, after Rand al'Thor talks about their heritage and where they came from, where they were following the way leaf before, some Aiel take meekness to a point of almost arrogance, and they never take off the white. They stay gai'shain forever, not just a year and a day. So it's one of those things where they introduced this because I think we're going to see that become an epidemic next season, and I think we're going to see more of the gai'shain, because the gai'shain play a central role in a bunch of different storylines, especially these Shaidos, because they don't consider, it's not that they don't follow Ji'ito, but to become a gai'shain, you have to follow Ji'ito, so you can lower your, so you can meet your honor. But if you don't follow Ji'ito, you don't even know you have the honor, so you can't become gai'shain. Shaido were taking people that did not follow that the same way as the Aiel and making them gai'shain. So it's a central point in the books, and something that I think we're going to see more in the show. So I think that's why they introduced this here. Next we have this. So this was kind of a fight between, more of a sparring match really, between Aviendha and Lan, and it's super, super interesting to see because they were having fun. They weren't actively trying to kill each other, but they were going pretty hard at it, and it was on the borderline of not being fun. And she's mad at him for quote unquote using a sword, because no sword should be used this close to Rhuidean. And she calls him an Alan in this scene. So that is an important phrase, and I don't believe it's ever been mentioned in the show before. He's been called Daishan, he's been called a few other things, but Lan has never been called an Alan. It's a name that the Aiel have for him that means man alone, or a man who is an entire nation. And there's some other kind of like translations for it too, but essentially those are the two that the books mentioned a couple times, and it's because he's Malkiri. He's from Malkiri royalty. The Malkiri nation has been overrun, and he's still fighting the shadow. So he's still fighting the fight. He is still out there fighting Shadow Spawn in the Blight. He's still fighting the Dark One. He has not given up yet. So they give him that sort of as a name to honor him, and it's something they say a fair bit in the book series. Now we have this, Aviendha is giving up being a Maiden of the Spear to go become a Wise One. Now, essentially, Wise Ones in the show and in the book series are kind of different. So, Wise Ones can come from all different backgrounds, but pretty much everyone who can channel becomes a Wise One. That's essentially what's going on here. Aviendha can channel, and she is destined to become a Wise One, whether she wants it or not. And the Wise Ones have been kind of making her do this, trying to force her to do this for quite some time. And this is the point where they're like, enough is enough. Time to put the dolls away. Stop being a little girl. Become a woman. Become a Wise One. And that's a direct reference to the books. They actually do that in some instances, because she's still so upset about it afterwards. They actually fashion a doll and make her carry it around. So here what they do is they take her spears and they break it in front of her. And that can be kind of interesting to see for some people who watch the show that haven't read the books, but it's a bit more than that. So not only do they break her spears in front of her, they take this, they burn everything that she has. So if she goes into Rhuidean and she fails, her belongings will be distributed to her loved ones, like it says here. But if she comes back, every scrap of everything she has is burnt in front of her. She has to watch it burn. So her whole life, her old life, burns away. And then all the metal, her belt buckles, her spearheads, everything she had is melted down by a smith, and then she tells the smith to fashion things for people, and she gives them out. So every single thing tying her to her old life as a Maiden of the Spear prior to becoming a Wise One is gone. So when she comes out of Rhuidean here at the end, she becomes a Wise One's apprentice, and then she has to work with the Wise Ones. She's no longer a Maiden of the Spear. So this is a pretty powerful scene, and I'm glad they included this, because it was that much more so in the books. All right, so I'll talk just a bit about this. It's something we have seen in all the teaser material and whatnot, but this is the dragon that twines around the left arm of the clan chiefs, and the Karakarn gets two of them, and so we all know that Rand is going into into Rhuidean in this particular episode, so he's going to come out with two dragons. You know he's the Karakarn. That's just one of the things. If you've read the books, you certainly know, but even people who watch the show, they know what's going to happen here. But what's interesting about these, and why I wanted to include it, is this is not the only way to get these. In the book series, they can be given by the One Power. So that's one of the things that I don't know how they're going to portray that going forward, but it's something to note because it is a major plot point within the books, and Ruark showing him this does not look like a traditional tattoo that you see in the show. This looks more ingrained into the skin. It certainly has the look and feel of modern tattoos, very colorful, very bright, something that we haven't seen much of in the show, so it is something special. And we know that The columns are a Terran Grail, and they use the one power to work. So it stands to reason that that's how it's also formed on their arms within Rhuidean. But just so you folks know, the one power can also be used to make them within the book series. Now we have this. This is not our first real shot of Rhuidean. In the episode it is, but we've seen it in teaser trailer and the materials that have been released. But if you notice something, there's skyscrapers there. This is essentially, in the book series, a city that mirrors those cities in the Age of Legends. They talk about very wide streets, which would make sense if you're in a city with skyscrapers, things that are taller than they could imagine, giant statues and fountains. So this is the last vestiges of what could have been a city in the Age of Legends. Now, they were building it after the Age of Legends, of course. That was one of the things that happened. However, it was built in the image of the cities in the Age of Legends. So seeing this, you can't help but think that's a modern city because of some of the architecture there, and that is entirely the point when they showcase this. Vanna is incredibly vain within the book series. She wears more jewelry than you could possibly imagine, and it just, the more jewelry she gets, the more she wears. She clinks as she walks. Essentially, she wears so much jewelry, and this is shown perfectly here. She's also hungry for power. So the whole point of her with Moiraine is that she plans on marrying him when he comes back out as a clan chief in the book series. And then if he fails, obviously she's going to marry Couladin, his brother, who will go in after him. In the show, we see that she was married to someone who was a clan chief, and then they died, and then now his son is in going through the crystal columns, and she's planning marrying him right afterwards. So something to note to her, she becomes a very important part of a large storyline within the books that I am not entirely sure if they're going to keep in the show or not, because it is a large storyline, but it is not entirely necessary to progress the plot of the entire series towards the last battle. But she is as ruthless as Elaida. She is as... Actually, I would say her and Elaida are very similar in a lot of ways. Not evil, but just not great people. But anyway, yeah, I like seeing her with all this jewelry. It's a direct call out to the way she is in the books. And if she can get a hold of jewelry, she's very kind of greedy as well. She will definitely wear it, which is kind of cool. Now, talk about this. So when Rand presents himself here to go into Rhuidean, he's presenting himself the same way Aviendha did. Now, this is the way that wise ones would present themselves to enter, not clan chiefs. But he doesn't know any better, and it incites Couladin, and he gets very upset and it kind of goes after Rand. And we see in this scene too, we see the wise ones actually channel. So this is an important part. So we already know the wise ones can channel. From one of the things I said earlier, when we know that Aviendha is being trained as a Wise One's apprentice because she can channel, but not all Wise Ones can channel, not all Wise Ones can dream, but those who can certainly are pushed towards the profession of Wise One. And this is, just like in the book series, the very first time that they get the inkling that the Wise Ones can channel, and you can see the look on Moiraine's face when it happened. She was very interested in that, because something that the Aiel don't have is membership at the White Tower, so nobody goes to the White Tower from the Aiel, and now they notice that, yes, in fact, there are channelers among the Aiel. Really cool thing to see, just that little look on Moiraine's face when she saw the channeling here. Something else I want to talk about here is when Rand and Moiraine enter Rhuidean before the opening credits start. This is a direct call out to a scene in the books. And I actually received probably about a half a dozen messages about this. I certainly wasn't the only one who noticed. A lot of other people did. And I want to thank all of you that sent this to me. But Matt, when he's with Rand, when they say they can't go into Rhuidean armed, because it's Matt and Rand that go in together in the book series, he starts pulling out knives. And he pulls out more knives and more knives and more knives. And he keeps doing it. And at the end of it, everybody's kind of like, not in awe, but like a little bit more respect towards Matt because of all the weapons he pulls out. And then sheepishly at the end, he's like, all right. And then he pulls out one more when they say, is that everything? This is, I believe, probably a direct call out to that scene, because Moiraine's doing the exact same thing that Matt did. Pulling out knife after knife after knife, one out of her hair, one out of her boot, one under her skirt, in her belt knife, up her sleeves. She pulls out a ton of knives here, and I think that is probably, quite honestly, a call out directly to Matt's scene in the books, where he's pulling all these knives out of his person and dropping them on the ground. Now this one goes to credit to the Dusty Wheel. So I do not know who mentioned it on the Dusty Wheel, and if you folks do, or if it was you, let me know in the comments down below, because I want to credit this person properly. But some some person with some very sharp ears noticed that the entry music to the Wheel of Time for this episode was backwards. It was played in reverse. And so I listened to it 2 or 3 times, and you know what? That's 100% correct. So this has something to do with going back through the ancestors' lives. I suspect it's a call out to what we're going to see when Rand walks through the columns, because he's walking back through his lives. If that music is in reverse, the wheel is reversing. We're no longer marching forward in time, we're marching back. I thought that was super smart. Now, I don't think that this was anything but exactly intentional for that reason. So let me know in the comments down below if you folks know who came up with this and heard it for the first time that I mentioned on the Dusty Wheel, or if it was you. Let me know. I'd like to know. Now, talk about this. So when Rand and Moiraine are walking through here, they talk about the fog a fair bit. And Moiraine talks about the fog, how it's a dry fog, how it's kind of odd. And some of those lines that she uses are the same lines that Matt sort of uses in the book series. And Rand is thinking that it seems odd and not unlike the One Power. And Matt is just thinking it's eerie, strange, odd, dry fog. So this scene, I think, kind of calls out towards when Matt and Rand were walking here. Now, Moiraine does enter Rhuidean in the book series, although she goes separately than Rand and Matt, and she does her own thing. They don't really meet each other inside. However, here, I think Moiraine is kind of taking over Matt's perspective in a lot of these scenes, because then Rand walks off into the distance on his own, goes to the glass columns, and Moiraine heads to the rings instead. So for clan chiefs, they go to the columns first. That is their only stop. For wise ones, they go to the rings first, and then columns happen later. So that's an important thing to note, especially for probably the last Easter egg of the episode. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now, Avendesora. So I want to talk just a bit about Avendesora. Avendesora is the Tree of Life. It is a mythical tree within the Wheel of Time, and it is something that the Aiel have been rumored to have, but no one really knew. And the reason they're rumored to have that is because they gave a cutting of the Avendesora tree to gai'shain. And it's not really explained why that happens in the in this particular episode, and I'm not sure if they filmed it or not, but it is explained in the books. So we're gonna talk just a bit about that. Essentially, during the time when the Aiel were wandering, they were desperate. There were bandits everywhere. This was just after the breaking. There was one people that always helped them, shared water with them, assisted them any way they can, and those were the people of gai'shain. And then later on, when the Aiel found out that gai'shain had done this, in part of repayment or part of a pledge of friendship, they brought a cutting, like a cutting of the Avendesora tree to the gai'shain, and they grew it there. Now, Moiraine does tell the story within the show that King Laman, her uncle, decided to cut down the tree and make a throne out of it, so no one else could have a throne like that. It was called Laman's Sin or Laman's Pride. And the Aiel were incised. They were upset about that, and that caused the Aiel War, which directly led to Rand's birth on the slopes of Dragonmount. A whole lot of moving pieces, and it's explained in great detail in the books. That part I don't think was explained in the show, at least not so much as the gai'shain were the ones that shared water with the Aiel, so I figured I'd let you folks know that. Also, one of the things about Avendesora, the Tree of Life, is it's a Chora tree, and in the Age of Legends, they exuded peace and serenity, and Rand mentions it here, and it's also mentioned in the flashbacks, but it was mentioned that any city without Chora trees was like a wilderness. It was something that most people expected to be in cities, and they were everywhere. And now there's really only one left in the world, which is kind of sad. So here, this is where you see Rhuidean further on in the distance from Rand as Rand is walking through these columns. But you see a bunch of dead bodies on the ground too, and Rhuidean eventually claws his eyes out and dies as well during this scene. And it's because that to Aiel, being an oathbreaker or breaking their oaths to the Aes Sedai is one of the most horrible things they could do. They used to follow the way of the leaf. They call the Tinkers the Lost Ones because they thought that there was something wrong with the Tinkers because they follow the way of the leaf, and they're not worthy of their time, when in fact the Tinkers are more close and more akin to their ancestors than the Aiel are themselves. So for some men, it's incredibly difficult to understand that. It's incredibly difficult to compare that. It's huge ontological shock. It just flips their whole point of view, and some die from the shock, some kill themselves. They never make it out. So you see Rhuidean claw his eyes out, and eventually he dies from the strain and stress of it. But you see all these other dead bodies here, and that's a testament to the fact that a lot of men who've been there to become clan chiefs see the same thing and die. And in fact, the mortality rate among clan chiefs is much higher than that of wise ones. And it's kind of I wouldn't say joked about, but it is mentioned a few times in the book series in sort of a superior type way that the women are tougher than the men. But less wise ones who go through the columns die than clan chiefs. They're able to accept it just a little bit better, maybe because they don't have as much pride. So these scenes where you're seeing Rand going back into the past and seeing through his ancestral eyes, and it's hard to show, and it's still here. I can probably show it a bit better during the breakdown when I do videos, because I do video clips in that series of videos. You see a flicker, and it's a flicker back and forth between Rand and his ancestors, and that's a direct call out to the books. Flicker is a thing that a lot of people in the fandom do talk about a fair bit. It's where it's mentioned a few different times in the book series, but it's essentially a flicker between the reality that you're in and another reality, whether it be the past or whether it be an alternate life, things of that nature. And it usually happens when, I think at one point in the Great Hunt it happened because there was sort of a trap where someone flickered through a bunch of different lives. Rand, it happened to Rand a few different times. He was flickering through. This is a direct call out to those same scenes within the books where they're seeing different lives or different avenues where what could have been, so to speak. But I thought it was really neat, and also very well edited. I mean, the way they had the people placed, it was perfect. Like the hands in the right spot, the head, the movements, all mirrored each other. It was done really, really well. All right, so these scenes here were not shown in the books, at least not on page, and it didn't happen exactly this way. So Janduin is Rand's father, and when Rand went through the columns, he didn't see through his father's eyes. This was explained later on when Rand sat down with the Wise Ones and asked them about his parents. And essentially, the short version of the story is his mother fled to the waste because she was told by an Aes Sedai she had to, or something terrible would happen. She became a maiden of the spear, and she fell in love with the youngest clan chief in history, Janduin. And Janduin was so hopelessly in love with her, he could not deny her anything. So when she became pregnant with his child, and they went to war against Lan and Rhuidean, he took her, and she was made of the spear, so she fought in the battles. Something that wasn't normally allowed, and something that normally didn't happen, but he couldn't deny her anything. And then when she died, he lost all will to live. He went to the Blight. He killed Shadowspawn until he met a man that looked just like his late wife, and didn't even raise his spears, and the man killed him. And that man was likely Lord Luke, Rand's uncle. And we talked about him, I think, in last week's breakdown, when we talked about Slayer and Lord Luke in Isham in the Two Rivers, so one of Perrin's enemies. So the key to this story here, I think, and this is just my thoughts, I could be completely wrong in this, is that he was so worried and so mad with grief, because in the scene that they shout they found her, so he's obviously looking for his wife, that he is not worried about anything else. He doesn't even think about veiling. He doesn't think about pulling his veil up. He's just killing people looking for his wife. Yes, it's ingrained into their culture, but I think this is showing exactly how far he's willing to go and just how much he's feeling fear for his wife at this point, because he just goes to find her. Now, we don't get to hear the rest of the story, obviously. That may come out later on, but for now, I think this was powerful enough just to show it this way. I thought it was really well done. Now, I want to talk about this. So as you're stepping through the visions, you're seeing different types of costumes. Robert Jordan modeled the Aiel after a few different cultures. The Zulu, the Bedouin, the Apache, and you're seeing a lot of those cultures in all of their costumes as you're zipping through here. And the necklaces and the beadwork in their weapons. I thought the way they showcase this on screen, just that little call out to those little bits, especially as they step back through time, and the different types of costumes the Aiel were wearing, was absolute amazing little touch to the show. All right, so this is Latra Posae, and we've seen her first in season 1 with Lews Therin in the Age of Legends, and she is obviously a fair bit older here, and we do see her again later on in this episode as Rand steps back through time. But what I want to talk about here is what she's holding is a sangreal named Sacranen. Now, in the book series, and we'll get down to this in a much more depth in my breakdown video, Sarkhanen, is a sangreal used by men, and it comes in various pieces, and one of the Forsaken Demander wields it during the last battle. In the show, they've made this ball named Sarkhanen sort of like the women's version of the Choden Call, one of the most powerful sangreal ever made. And the male version for the show is going to be Kalendor, the sword that Rand wields within the book series and in the last battle. Now, that was confirmed by Rafe Judkins the other night in the Dusty Wheel, that that is what's going to take place. So now we know. We've been speculating for a while, and did a leaks video here on it, probably 6 months ago or so now, where I talked about this very thing, because the source close to production let me know about it, but now we have actual confirmation. So I wanted to show this. This is her using the Aes Sedai, or the female version of the most powerful sangreal in the world, to create those glass columns and whatnot. And Aes Sedai during the Age of Legends lived to 700-800 years-ish, maybe a little bit older, so this gives you an idea of the timelines. Yes, there's official timelines, but especially for the show, those are a little off a bit sometimes, but it gives you an idea that likely a few hundred years or more have passed since the breaking when this is happening, and she is talking to all of the Aiel, telling them they must start going through the columns. Still pretty far in the past, but it's closer to the breaking, I think, than the present at this point. Now this, Rand says here, well, Rand, it's not Rand, it's one of Rand's ancestors, rather, Yoshi is playing, says, a sword is a weapon, spear can put food in the pot. And that is something that Aviendha directly said when in episode 2, I believe, when they were heading towards the waste, and they were sitting with, she caught the rabbit, sitting with Moiraine, sitting with Egwene, talking about this. And I thought it was really cool they included this line here, and then included again with Aviendha in the present, because it's likely something that is passed down when Aiel children ask the question, why can't we use a sword? Because that's bound to happen, and it's just a nice little touch to tie those two things together. I thought it was very neat. Now we're going to talk a bit, just a bit about these rings. We don't get to see this stuff on page in the books, so we don't get to see all of the things that Moiraine goes through, but she does talk about it after the fact a little bit. Most of it's hazy, most of it is not ideal, but she does talk about a few things that are shown here within the rings. So first thing I want to talk about here is this particular life. You have Moiraine as the Amyrlin, you have Swan as the Keeper, which I thought was a super nice touch. But Rand is wearing a coat here. This red coat is the exact same coat that he wears on the cover of A Memory of Light. So I'm not saying this is happening in and around when the last battle would happen, but I thought that this was likely the indication that that's what they're going for here, because that coat is modeled directly after the original artwork for A Memory of Light, which I thought was a nice little touch. You have this scene here where Moiraine is releasing Lan from his bond. This is a direct call out to a bunch of artwork we've seen, especially on the cover of New Spring and then fan art around surrounding New Spring. New Spring is a prequel novel to the Wheel of Time series, and it's where Moiraine actually bonds Lan. And this scene, or this image, is what we see when she bonds Lan in the fan artwork and on the cover of New Spring. So it's one of those things where I think she's releasing the bond here, but I think this scene and the way they showed it was a direct call out to that. And opposite of it, of course, she's releasing the bond and not bonding Lan, but I thought a nice touch either way. This is where she's bonding Rand. Now, one of the things that Moiraine does talk about in the book series are things that she does that would be disastrous. One of them was bonding Rand. One of them was bedding Rand. And we did get to see that briefly in the spinning ring circles when she was sleeping with Rand and also sleeping with, like, that was a thing. I've seen some people online talking about it, saying, why would that ever happen? She directly mentioned that in the book, saying it would be absolutely disastrous, something she had seen. So a lot of these little things we're seeing here were call-outs to things she mentioned in the books, but she doesn't talk about a whole lot of them. So those are two specific ones that I do remember from being from the books. And this is another blink if you miss a moment. The person actually setting Lan on fire here is Lanfear, and she's been the main antagonist of every one of Moiraine's visions, and she's the one that kills Moiraine over and over and over and over again. And that is a direct call-out to the books, because Lanfear is the one that, quote-unquote, kills Moiraine in the fires of heaven. Not really. I mean, realistically, they're kind of ported to the realm of the Elfin, but it's for all intents and purposes, everyone in the book series thinks she's dead. They think Lanfear kills her. So that's, I think, why they included all of the scenes of Lanfear killing her over and over again, which I thought was very smart. This scene here, I want to talk about this because this is Moiraine, quite obviously in the Two Rivers, pledging to the Dragon Reborn. Something else that that was mentioned briefly in the books, that if she pledged to him like this, it would have been disastrous as well. But he has both dragons on his arms. So he obviously, in this vision, had been to the Waste, been to the Aiel, gone through Rhuidean, become the Karakarn, and then came back home. So I'm wondering if this is, she never went to the Two Rivers in the first place. He went to the Waste, he came back home for the Battle of the Two Rivers type of stuff. and she finds him then. I don't know, but I thought that was very neat that he had both dragons on his arms. It's kind of a blink if you miss a moment as well. And this again is Latra. We talked about her a little bit, and we talked about Sarkhanen and Kalendor, but I just want to showcase her here as well, because this is her during the Age of Legends when she's giving up the objects of power to the Aiel and telling them to take them and keep them safe. So it's obviously at least a few hundred years later when the Aiel are coming out and coming into the city and the Waste Rhuidean to walk through the glass columns for the first time. This here, if you look in the background, you can see all those blazes of light up to the sky. I am pretty sure we are witnessing the breaking on screen for the first time here. Really very neat. And in the book series, I think this might be a call out to the formation of Dragonmount, because Theron is upset at what he does in the prequel of The Eye of the World. He had basically killed his entire family. Shamael comes to him, gives him lucidity, heals him from the Dark One's taint. He knows what he did, and he pulled way too much of the power in, and a beam of light shot from him up to the heavens and then down into the earth, and just bored deep into the earth, and it caused Dragonmount to form. So you're seeing a bunch of that in the distance. I wonder if that's a call out to all the male channelers going insane and doing similar things in the background. Either way, kind of neat to see. Now this is the Column Dom. This is a research facility in the Age of Legends. It's mentioned very briefly a couple of different times, and Moiraine or Lanfear was one of the researchers working there, working on finding an ability for both men and women to use at the same time. Now in the show here, they talk about something that anyone can use. In the book series, it's more of a power that both men and women can tap into at once, because they can probably do better things if they're both using the same type of power. But it goes badly, and we get our first visual of the Dark One, which is essentially, I never even thought about this, exactly how he's described in the books, or how they or it is described in the books. It is just a presence outside of time, outside of the pattern. And this was just the oddest, most evil looking thing that they could have put up here, and I thought this was really neat, because we are seeing directly into the Dark One here. We're seeing the bore into the Dark One's prison for the first time, and I loved it. I thought it was really, very cool. And nice shot with, like, just a beautiful, beautiful shot here, too, like that. And finally, we're going to end with our very last Easter egg here. Aviendha's being pretty snarky with Rand. And I mean, to be fair, she's been snarky with Rand pretty much the whole time, but she seems a little bit extra snarky right now, and she will get more snarky later on. But this is because she just went through the rings, and she likely saw in multiple futures of hers that she is with Rand, that she falls in love with Rand and could possibly be with him rather than Elaine. Now in the show, Elaine is her love interest. We've seen that earlier this season, and it probably stings a little bit here that she knows that she's going to fall for Rand instead, or that they're both going to fall for Rand and kind of become a different sort of thing than she envisioned. Either way, in the book series, same thing. She's really upset with him because she thinks in the books that Rand should be Elaine's, and that she doesn't believe that she should be with Rand at all, and that kind of culminates into a scene within an igloo we'll talk about a bit more in my breakdown video. But all right, so like I said earlier, there are probably tons and tons of Easter eggs in this episode I missed. There are so many, I don't think I can fit them all in one video. So if you've seen some and you know what they are, let me know in the comments down below, but put Easter egg in that comment so I can search it later on, and I'll credit you folks for it when I do my big Easter egg video at the end of the season. Now, again, you don't want to miss the next couple of days. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Tomorrow will be my breakdown where I'm walking through this episode, and I'm basically talking about the storylines of the books and explaining things in great detail. It's going to be a long one, folks. I think it'll be at least an hour long for this one, if not more. The following day, you are going to see an interview video. I got the opportunity to sit down with Shora Dishlu and Kate Fleetwood, so you'll see an interview with both of them. They had some great answers to some questions that I asked. You're not going to miss that. Then we have a news video that we're keying up for you. There was a bunch of stuff we missed in the last week or two with Q&As, interviews, social media, teasers. And then we're going to talk a bit about what we're going to see coming next on Wednesday, because we will likely get a teaser for the Thursday video, our Thursday episode that's coming out Wednesday on What Wednesday. That's what they did last week. We'll likely get that this Wednesday, and we'll key that up then. So there's a ton of stuff happening. You're going to see a video from me every single day. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Now, thank you all very much for sticking with me here to the very end, folks. Here's to many more.